Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for watching this video as we are getting ready to do the first print of 2025. Technically, it's still 2024. It's actually New Year's Eve, and I'm sitting here doing prints instead of out partying, but that's okay. We're good no matter what. So, first one for the year. One of my favorites as a kid, one of my favorite X-Men, Nightcrawler. So here's his body and head and base. We got everything else getting ready to print. It is from LA Figures, so go ahead and check them out. Their Patreon, I'll have linked in the description down below. But what I'm excited for about this one is if you watch the Isha video, we're talking about trying to do things that are kind of helping to develop our skills. This one I'm hoping to do a lot more airbrush than what I've been doing. So Nightcrawler's got a pretty simple costume. It's mainly just black and red, and then his skin and stuff is just blue and white, and his like gloves and hands. So kind of a simple scheme, basic colors. We've got all the colors that we need. So we're going to load up the airbrush and try to do some masking and just try to do some more. I'm going to do everything separately than what I've been doing. So instead of having everything kind of put together and then trying to paint it, I think I've learned that that's really difficult to do. I think early on it helped me kind of visualize the entire piece that way, and I would kind of pick apart. But you learn when you're trying to get in there and do detail that it can be really hard to do. When it's all together, plus you kind of, I found myself maybe rushing a little bit, not focusing on every minute detail because I have the whole piece. So I'm hoping maybe picking it apart, painting it before I put it together. We'll see if that helps. All right, so while we're queuing, just real quick, I wanted to go over, I'm using this different resin for these. Where is it at? That's just the water washable, the 2.0 ceramic gray, not the usual 8K that I use. Being that I got this to do the trophies because they don't have a ton of detail, so this is fine. But I went ahead and just had some left over, so I'm using it for this. And I gotta say, I'm not sure there's a huge difference in the detail amounts. I don't know, maybe a tiny bit of detail. Like some of like the finer details on like the suit. You can't, more on this, there's like some bits on the suit that maybe, but I don't know. I kind of like the lighter color too, because when it's curing, like right now, I can easily see where the UV light is hitting and where curing is maybe not getting in some of the cracks and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, this was significantly cheaper, maybe about $10 cheaper than like the 8K. But let me know what you guys think. I don't think there's a ton of difference in detail between the only thing I can think of is like some of these like defining lines, you can't really see them, but like on his knuckle there is like a little bit of design. On 8K, maybe that's a little bit more defined, which makes it a little bit easier when you're painting because there's just more detail there, so the brush can kind of catch it. That may be like the only real difference, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same. Also, I don't know why for so long I was using medium-sized supports. I switched to light supports. They're so much easier to get off and to, so here's like a light support compared to like some mediums that are probably in here somewhere, but they come off so much easier. There's less marks. It's easier to sand them down and get them cleaned. I don't know why. I should have switched to lights a long time ago. All right, so here's a nice test fit. You'll notice we're quite a bit off on the legs and arms peg-wise, which I'm a little surprised about because the pegs are really clean and there's no like extra resin or anything built up on them. If I can get this off here. Not breaking it. Come on. There we go. So see, like the peg's really clean. There's no extra barbs or anything. I think the hole maybe just, I don't know, but they're might need a little bit of work on the pegs because they're not even really close. And thinking back to the turtles, I had to do a lot of work on all their pegs. Tail, I can't even get it to even like go remotely into the hole. So we'll do some cleanup and we'll sand these pegs down and try to get them where they fit. But all in all, that is what it's going to look like. And like I mentioned, we're going to paint this one a little bit differently and go piece by piece as opposed to put it all together and paint it. So here we go. Well, this is why you got to be careful sometimes. I've been working on sanding down these pegs and getting them to fit. And I was twerking on that one a little bit too hard, just trying to see how far I could force it. And it snapped off right, and the peg snapped off right in the mold. So you got to be careful sometimes. So I think there's enough surface area in this inside this little boot here, though, that we can just glue it. We'll just fill that up with glue and it goes right on there. So I think it'll be all right, but just got to be careful when you're trying to get these pegs to fit. Again, I've had this issue with LA Figures before. I feel like these just need to be a little bit I don't know, something needs to be done on the pegs. They never align. I had this issue on my turtles as well, on just about every single one of them. And it's not like just taking some sandpaper to it makes it fit tightly. Like, they're way off. I usually end up having to kind of chip away at it with a X-Acto knife or carve into the thing. It's a lot to get these things to fit. So that peg just seems to be like a step smaller or something than what the hole here is or something to get it to fit. But so just to come back to this, to wrap this up, it's the last I'll talk on it. But you can see here how much work I had to do to this. This is sanding, this is filing, this is chipping away with an X-Acto knife. I pretty much had to like knock it off to just a nub of what it was previously. And that's just to get it kind of reasonable. I mean, there's still some gaps. So, I mean, frankly, kind of unacceptable. I mean, there's plenty of other creators out there that like can at least get it close, but like to be that far off and like this to be something that typically kind of happens with these designs, definitely needs some work done. Oh, shoot, we're leaking. Where I punched a hole when I broke that tab off. Now some resin's coming out. All right, so here we go. Trying something different here with this video. I just tried to record my painting and then I'm going to talk over it. Let me know what you guys think. If you like this better than me talking and then trying to do it. It seems like this is a better use of time. But you'll see here we're using the white Vallejo, just flat white, to do the gloves and boots. Probably one of the least coverage I've seen of the Vallejo paints I've used in the past. It took probably about 3 coats to get it to really start showing good. Luckily enough though, because we primered in black, a little black showing through wasn't terrible, because it did help kind of sell the shadows, but you did need to get decent coverage, so we had to do quite a few coats on this, on the hands and boots and everything to get it to really cover through. So here we go, starting on the boots. And this is where it did kind of help a lot with like the toes and the cracks, where if the paint didn't quite fill up as much, it didn't necessarily hurt as much because it kind of sold the shadows, and we're going to come back in later and kind of accentuate that with the air gun down the road. But for now, we're just going to try to give as much coverage as we can and keep coming back. I think this is a second coat here, or a third coat. It took probably about 3 solid coats, and then even some of them I had to come back and spot them up. But going here, we're starting with the red, doing the on some suits it's metal here. I think on the suit we're going for, which is kind of based on his kind of classic and X-Men animated series look, it's not. I think it is fabric. So we just went with this flat red from Vallejo, which covered really well and looked good. This did cover really good. I think it was really only 2 coats and then maybe a few spots here and there, but even the first coat went down really well. I just love these paints because they just leave no streaks, and they just dry so well. And even when you can't airbrush and you need to come in, I could have airbrushed these legs, and maybe looking back I think I should have, because the airbrush goes a little bit better than what I have in the past, but still solid look. No brush strokes. It went on really well. You'll see here in a minute. I also kind of like how the black, primering in black, I left that kind of thin black line that goes around the framing of it. I think it is kind of there in some other looks, and just kind of helped separate the white and the red. So moving on here, we're going to the base. Really quick base work. You'll see here I'm just dry brushing the same flat gray I use on all of my bases. And again, we're just dry brushing over all the rocks. This is such an easy way to just do bases. This whole base took me maybe like 5 minutes to do. So we're just going to dry brush and go really over. Then I took some brown. There is some kind of dirt mixed in with all this stonework, so we really just did the same exact thing. We're going to dry brush brown. And I'm not even really trying too hard to figure out what's rock and what's dirt. I'm just kind of doing the cracks in between all the big stones. You know, there's probably a few rocks in there that are painted brown, but for the most part, it doesn't really matter. You'll see here that I'm working on the rebar, coming in with this Elvish silver from my Game Masters set I bought. So we're coming in doing that in silver. And now I'm going to come back with just some bronze and just kind of dry brush it. Just come back and try to make the steel rebar look a little weathered, or, you know, it probably wouldn't be, if you've ever seen rebar, it's all kind of rusty and brown. And there you go. There's all the arms and legs pretty much done with their first coat. Emmy back there eating some ice cream. Looking good.
Next, I'm going to use this Black Templar contrast paint to go ahead and just start doing the black parts of the body. And you'll notice that, of course, it is primered in black, but I'm still going to go through and hit it with this Black Templar. Some of that primer can get kind of tacky and kind of sticky in different certain areas, so just put a nice coat down over top of it. It never hurts. And this Black Templar being a contrast paint, it's just easy to cover it. It's going to dry really thin. It's not going to be streaky, and just helps give it a little shine. It also has a kind of satin look to it, so it just looks a little bit better. Next, I'm just going to take this cheap Rust-Oleum matte clear and just cover the entire body, because we're going to come over and mask it for the red. So I want to make sure that that masking tape doesn't pull up any of that black that we just put down.
So I'm very mad because I just did all this with the airbrush and I had my whole station set up and I thought it was recording, but I wasn't. So see here, we did the first pass with the blue on his head. I think it worked really good for my cheapo airbrush that doesn't really spray too consistently and clogs a lot. So it takes a whole lot of work to get in there. I missed a little bit back here, but we can get that with a brush and you probably won't even see it. Looks really good. And then we also did the tail here, which took a lot of work to get covered. Again, my airbrush spray is really narrow and it's super cheap, but it looks pretty good. We're going to come in with a little darker color to get some shadows, and we'll see how it goes.
All right, so we're coming in with this dark Prussian blue, which is just a step darker blue. Trying to play more with using multiple colors to help add some contrast. So I do like to mix before I pour into my airbrush. My airbrush is a cheapo Amazon one with a kind of an electric compressor, so I don't get a ton of compression. So I just want to make sure that it's all mixed and nice and light before I pour it into the cup. Give it a nice spray on my arm to make sure. And then we're just gonna, fortunately I was blocking it with my hand like an idiot, so you couldn't really see it on the face, but here you can see a little bit of me doing the inside parts of the tail to help add that little extra layer of contrast. Next, we're going to come in with this Graveyard Gray from Army Painter. It's a speed paint, which is kind of like a contrast paint. Just pour it right into the cup and hit all those shadows and shaded areas.
Alright, so we're back the next day and I've got a pretty crude mask job done here. But we're really just trying to get this center isolated so we can spray it red. I'm sure there'll be a decent amount of cleanup we gotta do on the edges, but all the brushes and everything. This middle piece, I'm just gonna come back later and do that with that contrast paint. I think it'll work fine. So we're gonna leave that for now because my X-Acto knife's too dull to get in there and really kind of fine tune it. So we're just gonna do the best we can do just to limit the amount of overspray. Hit this right on here and get going.
Again, just doing my mixing before I pour it in. It's really just water and the Vallejos. I don't know the exact mix. I just kind of stir it up until it looks right. Again, making sure that it's coming out and flowing good before I put it onto the model. And it's actually covered really well. I was super impressed. Like I know, like I said, my airbrush is pretty fine, so I was worried that the lines would be too close, and but it covered pretty uniformly. It was nice and consistent. Again, Vallejo paints, they're the best. I did kind of experiment with a darker red, but I don't think it ended up really showing well in the model. We're going to come back in with that speed paint later. Here's me. The number one thing I learned that I need to work on is framing for my over shoulder camera here. But this is coming back in with the black after we pulled off the masking tape and just cleaning up. We didn't do a great masking job, but I knew that it would be pretty easy to come back in and clean up all these lines later. So just using the Vallejo flat black to round this out and detail it all in, make it look good. Now coming in, doing the eyebrows, again, doing that same black on the eyebrows with my very fine brush, and doing the white eyes. So you'll notice in the thumbnail, you might be saying, Ryan, the eyes were yellow. Always want to lay down base white before you do anything like that, because yellow looks really ugly on black. So we're going to put a white base down. Now working on the teeth. And I think what I'm actually doing here is I'm using that Prussian blue, that darker blue, to do the lips, just to help not keep it all uniform and help it stand out from the rest of the face. So we're doing that dark blue on the upper and bottom lip. Also, I got a few dots of white when I was doing the teeth, so we're covering that up as well. Here's the yellow, and if you see me dabbing on my arm there, it's just to help get the big glob of paint off of the brush before we put it on the eye. There's nothing worse than trying to do a detail spot, and then you just put way too much paint on it and kind of just mess the whole thing up. So just doing a nice little quick swab right on my arm there to make sure that we get the big thick clump off. Alright, so I came back and did some shading, similar to what I did on the boots and everything. I think everything is done. I've even started putting the feet on the base. I came back in last night on the base and used a little skeleton horde contrast spray just to try to bring out a little bit more of the stonework. Let's get her all pieced together and see the final video. Scale-wise, though, this is pretty crazy just how big this Venom one I did was. I mean, like, the heads on his little things are, like, as big as the Nightcrawler head. That thing was massive. Go check out the video on Venom while you're at it. There you go. So, here he is, Nightcrawler. I gotta say, this is probably the best, I think the best work I've done yet. Like, I think I did a good job getting all of the using an airbrush this much on the first time, which gave me the kind of clean finish. That is easily the best head I've ever done. With the shading and the teeth are pretty good. The eyes look, I mean, I didn't have to do a pupil, so that made it a little bit easier, but I think just they were clean. All the shading I did with that dark gray speed paint turned out good. Like, just, I think my best one I've done yet. And really nothing I did was extremely difficult. It was just trying to use the airbrush more, so less streaks. And then the shading in different areas, and I think the multiple different coats of blue on the face helped a lot. But I'm super happy with this for being one that I was like, hey, I've got some leftover resin. What would be a good model to just pump out real quick? It was New Year's Eve and New Year's kind of weekend here. So I've been wanting to do this Nightcrawler, and we got it done, and I'm really happy with it. Let me know what you guys think. Drop a like. Let me know in the comments what you think about this particular Nightcrawler. Base turned out good, I think. Adding that skeleton horde, I think, just gave it a little bit more layer of complexity to it. So let me know what you think, and let me know what else you want me to print. I've got a bunch of others sitting in the back waiting, and we'll learn some good techniques to practice what next. I definitely think doing them in pieces, doing it apart and then putting it together really let me focus more on, like, just little details and making sure everything looked better before. Because once it's all pieced together, you kind of just want it to be done. So I find myself kind of just like not spending as much time on it when it's all put together But there you go. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one.